Hey guys, can you introduce yourself and who you work for or who you work with?
Yeah.
So try it. Go.
Brian, the owner and founder of iMold.
Okay. Awesome.
I'm Crystal. I'm the general manager of iMold.
Wonderful. If you guys give us a few bullet points and preparation advice, pieces of advice for how to best prep your business or your home for a hurricane,
Yes.
how would you start?
Well, if I was a homeowner, I would make sure I have all my documents and everything in a sealed
Like what? Documents.
your medical, your will, your prescriptions, your photo albums, anything that's really important in some kind of waterproof container. That in case you have to evacuate quickly, things get a little hairy sometimes. You got to go quick, so you can just take your belongings that may get ruined with water damage per se. So that's very big. I always, if I was a homeowner, make sure I had some sandbags. We never know if we're going to have flooding like we did last time, and if that water's going to come up quick. Sandbags in front of your doors in your garage will help a lot from the rising body of water.
Where do you get sandbags?
Home Depot, actually. You can buy sand there in bulk, and they have the bags there. Or you can get the bags on Amazon. Still get the sand delivered from Home Depot. It's rather cheap.
Okay.
And fill up your sandbags and use them as needed.
In typical, or let's see, in general, what would you say is the amount of sandbags you need if you're a single-family home or a business?
Well, we just did a home yesterday from all these rains. So
I heard about that.
iMold had to respond. The lady's water was rising up from the streets, across the lawn and into the home, and we went through 60 normal-sized sandbags real quick.
60.
60, yes, sir.
That's a lot.
You had to place them up about 2 feet high, like 1 to 2 feet high. So it's bags stacked on top of bags to avoid the water from going into the garage so that we were able to extract the water.
Okay. What do you guys use to extract the water? Is that something that a lay person can do, or is that?
Well, if you can safely, if you're standing in water, you got to be very careful. You don't get shocked, but if you can use a shop vac and start extracting water till we get there and throwing that out the window per se. But we always caution people to be very careful. People aren't paying attention to outlets and extension cords on the floor. Our team is very trained in that, and we just make sure nobody gets shocked. But when we get there, we have big extractors that pull thousands of gallons quickly, and we can put it down a drain, or we can shoot it to the backyard or a low point, or anywhere in the yard if we need to. So that's how we do it.
That's great.
Mm-hmm.
So, give me a story. So, what kind of places have you saved from being flooded?
Go ahead.
Quite a few. With Hurricane Ian, obviously we had a lot of water damage. There was $1 million homes in Naples that we saved. There were a lot of homes in like Marco Island, even Fort Myers off of Summerlin. There was a lot of homes that were completely destroyed, that were full guts, that we had to literally rip out ceilings, all walls, everything.
And then I live on Pine Island, which the bridge went down. So as I was driving around the island, telephone poles are down. I have a big truck, thank God, and I can get around and check my neighbors. And there was 9 foot of water in some of my neighbors' homes. Yeah. I'm a 6-foot gentleman, and the mud lines were above their head. So very thankful those people evacuated.
Goodness.
Yeah, because it's just a mess.
Okay, so that's preparation on the forefront before the storm happens. Is there anything you can do during the storm? Is there anything you can do after a storm? Who should you call?
Well, call iMold if you have water and mold damage. We have a lot of clients right now just with this big rain. It's not like the big flood of the storm. That's super rare, but I'll tell you something that happens more occurring every year like this, these low houses. Water seeping in just a little bit, enough where you're using towels and maybe your shop vac again, and your baseboards are getting wet and are starting to swell. So that's called material separation. So when you see material separation, your call iMold will come out and check it out. Normally we'll pull that baseboard. Hopefully we get it early in the first 3 days before mold. If you leave your baseboards wet for more than 3 days, it's going to start to get mold. You're going to get an odor. Start feeling a little funny in your home, you'll know. That changes everything. Normally we can drywall and save it with our equipment. But if it waits too long, a week or so, it's going to be a mold remediation, which is very expensive. So just call iMold and get us out there when you see any material separation. That's basically baseboard that starts swelling up. If your carpet gets wet, again, you call us. If your tile's wet, before it gets ruined. Let us dry your tile. There's a big difference when drying tile for a week with a dehumidifier and a special tent system we use versus letting it sit for a month. It starts popping up. Again, bacteria and mold grows underneath. Everybody in the house is getting sick. Very expensive to pull all your tile and move your furniture out. So it's always cheaper to dry and preserve property than it is to get to the mold.
Talking about flooring, what is the what's the biggest opponent or whatever to having a dry floor? So like, is it carpet? Is it tile? Is it wood? Is it?
Well,
You know what I mean?
hardwood floors we can dry if we're quick. If we're out there, the day after at least, we can dry a lot of hardwood floors.
Yeah.
If it's engineered flooring, it's going to swell underneath like a sponge getting wet for its first time. Normally that stuff will be pulled, and then we're drying the slab before the water wicks into your cabinets and your furniture, and your humidity rises in your home. So we're getting in front of that. Tile, again, like I said, we'll start drying. Carpeting, if it's street water with oil and fecal matter, there's a lot of septic tanks still around town, so that means that stuff is in that water. It's not clean. That's category 3. We'll just pull that out and sanitize the slab. I think that's it. The luxury vinyl plank, we can normally wipe off both sides, clean and dry, and you can reuse it a lot of times.
Is luxury vinyl plank LVP? Is that better than?
It's a newer product. I think it's pretty good for that purpose, that you could reuse it a time or two. I understand if it, a couple of times in
The lips start to swell,
yeah,
the parts that interlock.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And what a lot of people don't understand about tile is that the grout is porous. So the water seeps through, it goes underneath, it starts wicking up the sides of the drywall. And a lot of people don't understand that. Insurance adjusters sure don't understand that. And that was probably our biggest hurdle with Hurricane Ian, was getting people to understand that tile had to come out because of the Cat 3 water, the bacteria that grows underneath that. So that was definitely our biggest issue.
Yeah, we had people, 3 weeks after the storm, the adjusters there, and the adjusters were just going to clean the tile, leave it alone, and I'm showing them it's 100% wet. And we had this one client, he was all over the news, all over the country with Universal, and I told him, I said, Bill, go downstairs and get a hammer. I'm not allowed yet, but it's your home. Pop up one tile, let's see what that smells like. And the news team was there, and the adjuster was still measuring the house, and the adjuster had about a heart attack when the odor was just pungent of, it was really funky. It was mold and bacteria and all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
Almost, wow, that is rough. And then I looked back at the adjuster, and the cameras were rolling. And I said, sir, are you sure we don't want to remove all the tile and sanitize the slab? And he, of course, paid for it. And then Universal went right on the news apologizing to the rest of the policyholders and saying iMold was right at that case, and we just didn't know.
And that was shortly after the hurricane. Could you imagine what it looks like now with all of the homes that didn't remove it?
Yeah, there's a lot of homes that are still sitting in a lot of nasty.
Are there, in your knowledge, some homes out there that did not mitigate, that did not remove, and now are for sale?
Yes, in our industry, what do we call that, Bob?
Lipstick on a pig.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's the term.
We ran into quite a
Technical
few that are doing that, and quite a few got caught.
Yeah, so basically,
Inspector can catch that? Or...
Oh yeah,
Oh, yeah.
for sure. And when they don't catch it, we do. We caught quite a few and got some sales stopped, unfortunately. But it's, for the benefit of the buyer and the seller. It's safety. It is about health and safety.
I recommend everybody, if you're going to sell your home, you just do it right. You will get caught. There will be lawyers. I have a client in Cape Coral, over by Cape Coral Yacht Club. She bought the house, school teacher, so not a lot of money. She's retired, saved her whole life to move down in Florida and retire. She's doing a remodel, and they're pulling off the base trim, which somebody bleached and painted.
Yep.
They never removed the drywall. They didn't remove the tile. She freaks out. She calls iMold because we got 500 plus 5-star reviews, so obviously we get a lot of these. I go out there myself, and I put my meter on the floor, and it's almost a year later. The tile's still soaked.
Yeah.
And the water has nowhere to go. So
there was no smell?
there was an odor, yes.
It doesn't necessarily know it.
Somebody had put the seller had put potpourri and the plugins, So once those left, and she moved her furniture, and she started getting a little sick, but she didn't know why. She just thought allergies, Florida. And but when she started remodeling, she removed a little bit of baseboard. It was black. So then we had some guys go in. Crystal sent a team over, and we had removed some drywall, and it was black and green inside the walls like this. I found the inside of closets where they forgot to paint the mud lines, and we took pictures. She got a lawyer. She sued the realtor and the homeowner. She won. Homeowner had to buy the home back, pay her loss of use, pay us to clean all her furniture now because now it's contaminated. A real messy situation. And I mentioned to the realtor, they didn't know. They just were selling a house, didn't know the homeowner painted over all that. And I said, man, I wonder how many of these are going on. The realtor goes, I think a lot. So I know it. Crystal knows it because she has to fix them as the GM here. But that realtor from Cape Coral mentioned, real great people, but they said it's happening a lot. Yeah. And that's where the word lipstick on the pig came out. And I told Crystal, this is what the realtor said. It's called lipstick on the pig, where somebody just makes it pretty and smell nice, and they pass that damage on to somebody else. But think about that poor lady lived in there, what it did to her health. What if they knocked a few years off of her life? That's horrible.
What can you tell us about mold toxicity?
Well, she was getting, that particular client, everybody's a little different, but she was getting the itchy eyes. She was getting migraines, frontal lobe, which was a lot of penicillin in there. That's what it does. Her chest and lungs were getting tight. I was in there 30 minutes without my mask. I didn't want to scare or sound like Darth Vader because that's what I sound like when I have my big old mask on. And so I had to go out to the truck and get it. I got it at the ready. And I put it on. I was getting sick, but her lungs were getting tight. She was having memory problems. All the things that you can Google, you can see. So I told her immediately, I said, just go to your doctors, show them this mold report. We got her an assessor. Crystal hired one of her assessors, said, go in there and test this place. It came back with Stachybotrys, bacteria under the tile, penicillin galore. And I said, take this to your doctor and have them treat you. I think they scoped her nose. They did a blood test, found she had high toxins in her blood. She was on some kind of binders. I mean, thank God she didn't get cancerous polyps. If she was there for 6 months or a year, you grow cancer in your face. And that's not a place you want it.
Nobody likes cancer. Yeah.
Nobody likes cancer.
What can you tell us the difference between black and green mold? Or I'm sure there's many other types.
There's tons of types. So when you see a green mold, it's normally a humidity-driven mold. It's lighter in color, right? Like looks like leaves outside. And then when you have the darker colored molds, that's usually a water damage mold, and that would be Stachybotrys or black mold or Chitoon, the scary molds.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Not that any molds are good, but usually when water's involved, it has a stronger mycotoxin.
We call them no tolerance molds.
Correct.
No tolerance means if we're going in to do a remediation, we have to have 1 spore count or less in order to pass that test. It's hard to do that, but we do it.
And we do it constantly. It's no tolerance means that even a little bit of that particular mold can really mess up your body. Where penicillin, you can have a little bit in the air. There's some outside. There's a little tolerance to it.
When you guys, I've seen this in my experience, property management, all this stuff using iMold. When you guys go into a business, I notice that you look like, Independence Day. You look like you have the whole HVAC, not HVAC, what's the name?
PPE.
Suits.
The PPE.
Tyvek suits.
Personal
Yeah,
protective
like
gear.
PPE,
Yeah.
Yep, PPE gear.
The very protective equipment on there. Are there businesses and homeowners who can be in the home while you're doing that mitigation?
It depends. It depends on the areas that we're doing the work in. If we're doing work in more than half the house, we recommend that they're not in the home while we're doing it. If we're only working in one room, we can contain off the room with containment, air scrubbers, negative air, and suck everything outside. So it is okay at that point for them to be in there as long as the vents are sealed off. But if it is like a whole house remediation, no, they cannot be in the home.
You mentioned the vents being turned off, or vents being
Blocked off.
Why is that important?
It's because the duct system, we call it the lung of the home. So it sucks up the mold spores into the air vents and throws it into other spaces of the home that might not be contaminated.
Give me a couple things that you want us to learn from listening to you.
Well, like I said earlier, if you see water damage in your home that you're using towels and mops and shop vacs, get us in quickly so we can assess what it is using our thermal image cameras, our moisture readers. We can get things documented in case it's an insurance claim. Sometimes, like we have a lady right now, she got all new windows and one window didn't seal correctly and it's leaking. No sense in a claim. Contain the area, dry it out, and stop it from getting mold. Not big enough for a claim, but if it's a sizable job and there's a claim, you want us in immediately to start documenting what's going on. That helps you get paid. So always use an expert. Use somebody that has decades of experience working with insurance companies, on your behalf, protecting you. So you don't need a public adjuster, so you don't need a lawyer. By the time you need that, it takes years. There's lots of our clients that are in a holding pattern right now. That hurricane was years ago, and they still haven't seen a dime. So always get a company in that you trust, have them document right away.
And also, just because something's dried out doesn't mean that it can't get wet again and create mold. A lot of insurance adjusters will tell the homeowners, oh, well, it's dried out. You don't need to do anything else. If anything were to happen and that mold were to get wet again, it will reactivate. So the best thing to do is get it cut out and remediated.
Absolutely.
This is off topic a little bit, but can you tell us a little bit about your service? Thank you very much, by the way.
Oh, yeah. I left New Jersey in 1993. I went into the U.S. Seabees. I was a UT. UT is utilities-man. I did lead, asbestos, mold abatement, plumbing, HVAC, blower door tests. They taught me all kinds of fun stuff. I was a good test taker, so they kept feeding me schools. I got famous for removing asbestos and passing clearances the first time. So when I got wounded, they said, they told me basically I could be a yeoman, which is a secretary, or get out with honors. And I said, I am a terrible secretary. Have you seen my handwriting? I'm out of here. I went down to Florida where my family had moved, and I was going to do asbestos. There's just not a lot of it here. Yeah. But there was a ton of mold. So when I was in the military, I was teaching asbestos abatement, and I was like, respect the fiber. And then you can pass first time, and it's for people's quality of health. It's so important to pass and to not leave any asbestos. So same thing as respect the spore. So we're very big into making sure its clearance tests are down to near zilch. Every job we can, get that spore down and respect it. Because if you leave a little behind, it can cause cancer. It can regrow, can start again. We don't really have any warranties. About 28 years. I can't even think of a single time that we had to go back and re-clean a job that we had left something behind. That I think is huge.
We actually have a high amount of non-detecteds, which is rare in our industry, meaning there's no spores found in the air.
0. That's in most textbooks says it's impossible. I learned that when I was a kid. My first mold remediation job, the inspector said, well, you can't get zeros. It's not like asbestos. It's impossible. It says right here in bioaerosols books, just not possible. And 4 or 5 months later, his name's John Cosgrove with the Radon Mold Professionals. You can get him on the phone. He would tell you it was the first one he's ever seen. And he put that out to other people in the industry, and it was the first one they've ever seen. Then I went to Orlando, and I was doing remediation over there for John Lapeteer. He's the president of the IQA. He again said, Brian, it's impossible. I heard rumor about it. It's called Brian Clean. But he said it's impossible. 2 weeks in Orlando with my trucks, I gave him his first one. He was blown away. He drags me up on stage at these conferences and says, now we're going to talk about Brian Clean. How do you do it? And so I teach others on how to get a non-detected when the textbooks say that you just can't do it.
That's amazing.
You got to get that passion into your team. You got to teach culture, and you got to tell people, the fireman puts on his cape, he gets to put out the fire, the policeman gets the bad guy. That's his cape, right? Our cape is to make sure little Johnny doesn't get pulmonary emphysema. So if you teach that to your team, that it's so important to get every speck of mold out of the place, all of it, so somebody doesn't get sick. That's their cape they get to put on at iMold, and I love that part.
That's beautiful.
Thank you.
You guys. Tell us again your names and where you work.
Again, I'm Brian Bland from iMold, and
Crystal, I'm the general manager with iMold.